What was the most lucrative product to come out of the California gold rush? Not gold. At least not for the vast majority of miners, for whom the gold rush was basically a bust. But the merchants who served those miners, well, they had a golden opportunity indeed. All those new miners needed products, housing, food, and clothing. Lots and lots of clothing. Enter Levi Strauss. Sound familiar? Yeah, he should. But hold on a second. Strauss was a German immigrant who arrived in San Francisco in 1853 to open Levi Strauss Co, a wholesale dry goods business to cater to California's exploding population. That went okay, but it took another 20 years for Strauss's real breakthrough, blue jeans. That's why you know his name. One of Strauss's customers, a tailor from Latvia named Jacob Davis, bought denim fabric from Strauss to sew various products for his customers: tents, wagon covers, and now pants. Davis wrote to Strauss for help to patent and market his invention, denim pants strengthened with copper rivets. They received a patent for the pants in 1873. But while jeans are still a worldwide sensation 150 years later, Levi's itself hasn't always struck gold. The company rose to fame as a hearty, all-American brand.
Everybody has a Levi's story. First date, first kiss, going to college, everybody has a Levi's story, and we've capitalized on that.
But it has struggled to maintain the public's loyalty. Now, after a rocky recovery, it's poised to go public again in 2019. The big question now, will this be a boom or bust for the company that invented jeans? For its first 70 years, Levi's were the pant of America's working class: miners, ranchers, factory workers, and more. Levi's dominated the jean market until 1913, when rival brand Lee rolled out its Union Alls. A few decades later, Wrangler introduced its jeans fashioned with felled seams and deeper watch pockets for the modern-day cowboy. So competition was heating up, but the denim market was about to experience a major boost. How? World War II and the baby boomers. Jeans made their worldwide debut during World War II, as American soldiers wore the casual pants around Europe when off duty.
That kind of got consumers to just see something a little bit different because everybody was so much more formal. Men were wearing hats and suits, ladies wore like suits and coats and, fur scarves. I mean, it was a very formal culture globally. And I think that was really like the start of this global trend within denim.
When soldiers returned, jeans stuck around. But it took a boost from the silver screen to transform jeans from strictly functional to fashion statement. John Wayne first popularized denim with his rugged cowboy characters in popular Western movies during the 1930s and 40s. But denim's real breakthrough came from 1950s Hollywood movies and the teenagers who watched them. When James Dean donned jeans and a leather jacket in Rebel Without a Cause, he kicked off a fashion sensation.
Jeans, leather jackets, those hats, it was very, very rebellious. It was very different from what the culture was used to.
Though Dean wore jeans from Levi's rival company, Lee, Levi's themselves graced the legs of famous stars in other popular movies. These films introduced jeans as a symbol of sexy rebellion to America's teenagers. Some school districts even banned students from wearing them. This growing popularity helped Levi's expand nationwide. Young baby boomers across the country wore their Levi's to the sock hops of the 50s, the music festivals of the 60s, and the protests of the 70s.
What makes the Levi brand so successful is their ability to keep re-engineering and introducing themselves to the next generation. They are one of the few denim brands that continually maintain their customer base and find ways to get the new and upcoming youth market to think about denim and Levi's together.
Capitalizing on the success, Levi's went public for the first time in 1971, and its sales grew at an annual clip of 37% during the late 70s. The denim market as a whole was booming, peaking in 1981 with nearly 590 million jeans sold. Levi's and its top two competitors, Lee and Wrangler, represented over 40% of the denim market. But this denim rush slowed in the early 1980s. Levi's, though firmly cemented as an iconic American brand, began to struggle. First, the company fell behind fashion trends. Amid the slumping jeans market of the 80s, designer jeans from Calvin Klein and Jordache came into vogue. They gave the pants the sex appeal that Levi's classic 501s lacked, and consumers bought them for nearly double the cost of Levi's. At the same time, the major clothing retailer VF Corporation merged with Wrangler's parent company, Bluebell. Now, two of Levi's top competitors for the classic American jean market, Wrangler and Lee, were both under VF Corp. Levi's revenue plunged 78% in the first half of 1984, a worrying stumble for a publicly traded company. Levi Strauss's descendants decided to take on $1.6 billion in debt to buy back the majority of the company, taking it private and freeing it from the pressures of Wall Street. It was the biggest deal of its kind in the apparel industry at the time. Once it went private, Levi's acted fast to compete in a tough denim market. It closed 11 plants and laid off 3,600 employees. It invested in marketing and technology and introduced its business casual brand Dockers in 1986. Dockers focused on trendier non-denim trousers, which cut into VF Corp's jean sales. Denim boomed again in the 1990s. Levi's sales peaked in 1996 at $7.1 billion. The company was paying its debt years ahead of schedule, so Strauss's descendants borrowed another $3.3 billion to buy back the rest of the company. But Levi's still struggled to stay relevant. It missed the baggy jeans trend in the 90s and the hip-hugging style of the early 2000s. Cheaper private label brands sold at JCPenney and Gap ate into Levi's sales in the 1990s, followed by new upscale competitors like 7 for All Mankind, Diesel, and True Religion in the early 2000s. Battered by competition, Levi's sales fell every year from 1997 to 2002. Still saddled with debt, the company recruited the first non-family member to serve as CEO, Phil Marino. Marino and his successor, John Anderson, cast around for solutions. They considered selling the Dockers brand and teased going public again. Levi's sales recovered somewhat by 2007, but fell again when the financial crash devastated the garment industry. Some analysts argue that Levi's reputation as a classic American brand has seen the company through fickle fashion trends and economic woes.
They can ride out the storm. They're not worried about being the first and the trendsetter. They're worried about maintaining their volume and their core customer business and achieving growth within the new customers.
But even that all-American reputation has faded. The 80s and 90s saw the rapid outsourcing of garment production from the US to countries with cheaper labor. This allowed Levi's competitors to slash prices, luring customers away from the Levi's brand. This flew in the face of both Levi's all-American reputation and its long-standing relationship with its employees. When the Great San Francisco Fire burned down the Levi's factory in 1906, Levi's kept paying workers. And when sales fell during the Great Depression, Levi's paid its employees to put in new factory floors rather than laying them off. So Levi's resisted outsourcing. It closed some plants in the 80s and 90s, but held on to others until finally closing its last U.S. plant in 2004. When announcing the final plant closures, a Levi Strauss company spokesman told NBC News, "We try to do our best to maintain manufacturing in the United States, but we have to be competitive to survive as a company." Now, the vast majority of Levi's all-American jeans come from China, Vietnam, Mexico, and elsewhere. So by the mid-2000s, Levi's faced massive debt, sluggish sales, and a waning reputation as an all-American icon.
They've got their base. What they've got to appeal to is sort of break the mold of Levi's as Levi's classic to increase their, fashionability index, so to speak, but they can't go too far.
Enter Chip Bergh. Bergh, another Levi's outsider, took over as CEO in 2011.
The brand lost its way back in the late 90s and early 2000s. We lost a lot of consumers. We lost our mojo. I saw this as kind of an enormous opportunity and an enormous challenge.
He encouraged the company to focus on what worked, like the core men's bottoms business, and strengthen weaker areas. He revamped stores and its e-commerce site, but found the most success with women's jeans. Using its new Eureka Innovation Lab, an in-house research and design initiative, sales increased from under $800 million to over $1 billion in under 3 years. Additionally, fashion trends are finally back on Levi's side. Nostalgia for the 1980s and 1990s has brought back light wash, distressed, and mom jeans, and a taste for Levi's 501s. Kanye West wears a Levi's vintage trucker jacket, while his famous family sports Levi's on Instagram and in their 2017 Christmas card. Levi's even got a taste of the hysteria of a high-profile sneaker drop when they remade the Air Jordan 4 sneakers in denim in June of 2018. Finally, Levi's placed itself prominently in the public eye. First, in 2013, it signed a 20-year, $220 million deal for the naming rights to the San Francisco 49ers Stadium. The stadium and its employees, including the cheerleaders, are now plastered with Levi's advertising. The people who attend concerts and NFL games are our core customers, Bergh wrote for the Harvard Business Review, so this would put our brand back at the center of the cultural conversation. Second, Levi's joined other retailers in taking a public stand against gun violence in 2018. Bergh, a former Army officer, wrote an op-ed for Fortune promising $1 million in donations to anti-gun violence activists and 5 hours of paid volunteer time each month for Levi's employees. He had previously asked customers not to bring firearms into Levi's stores in 2016. Berg stated that he received threats against Levi's stores and even himself after posting the op-ed, but he responded that they pale in comparison to threats against other activists and the daily threats of gun violence faced by many across the country.
This brand is at its best when we're at the center of culture. We were there when the Berlin Wall fell down. We were there through the riots in the 60s and 70s. So we've put the brand back at the center of culture.
So with innovation, trends, and bold public moves, Levi's seems to be recapturing some of its iconic essence. They consistently captured around 11% of the US total denim market from 2012 to 2015, and their annual sales slowly crawled back up to $4.9 billion in 2017. It was their highest sales numbers since 1999, and it happened as the rest of the US jeans market took a beating. But this is still a far cry from its 1996 sales. Staying private helped the company make long-term investments in its business, but it still has more than $1 billion in total debt. So today, with the denim industry set to grow, Levi's is once again considering going public in 2019. Sources tell CNBC that Levi's is aiming to raise as much as $800 million, which would value the company at $5 billion. That kind of cash could help it finally pay off its remaining debt and focus on growth. CNBC reached out to Levi's for an interview, but they declined. This potential IPO comes as the parent company of Lee & Wrangler is splitting its denim division into its own public company. VF Corp announced a decision in August 2018, saying it wanted to focus on its activewear brands like The North Face and Timberland. It's a move some say indicates its denim brands were weighing on overall profits. But most analysts maintain that Levi's still stands to gain quite a lot from going public. It could be a golden opportunity to reclaim its place as an American icon.